Lindenwood head coach Kyle Gerdeman, his sixth season with the program. His team is picked ninth in the preseason poll. Coach, let's just start off some general thoughts about your team as we enter this season.
I think probably like a lot of teams in the conference, pretty much a new team. We've got some returners back, but bringing in a lot of new guys, some Division I transfers, a few high school kids, three freshmen, a couple of junior college kids as well. So I think a lot of unknown, but I think a lot of excitement because I do feel like as we head into year three here. I think we've kind of been able to build a base for our program finally, starting with, kind of a late start when we made the announcement a couple of years ago and piecing together, kind of that roster in year one and then having some turnover into year two. I think as we move into year three, we feel pretty stable about where we're at and kind of excited about what's in front of us.
If you had to say if there's one thing you're most excited about entering this season, what would that be?
I think that I think what I like about our roster is I think we've got some depth that maybe we didn't have the last couple of years. I thought the last 2 years, we were an injury away from, really being in a tough spot, or foul trouble away from being in a tough spot, things like that. And I think that our depth has increased, especially at the guard spots, which I think is important. And I think that's kind of the first thing that jumps out at me.
If anybody does have questions, I know people are listening, just let me know down in the chat and then I can call on you. You can raise your virtual hand, whichever works for you. You mentioned this process, the reclassification to Division I. And when that started, now 3 years ago, is this where you thought you all would be now? Like, I know there's challenges and there's positives and negatives. Is this where you thought maybe it was, or did something really surprise you about the process?
Um, No, I don't think anything really surprised me about it. I mean, we knew I think that it's going to take time and that it's going to be a challenge and we're not all the way there yet. I'm not saying that at all. But I think that what doesn't surprise me is I think what the plan was to be moving forward. And, I think that we've been able to do that. Like I said, as we build our roster, as we build our program, as things kind of get stable. That's what the biggest thing that I think jumps out at me as we go into year three is that, I think our process here, not only with what we've tried to build, but what our university's tried to do over the course of time, I think has got us headed in the right direction.
You've said build a roster for a couple times. You got some returning players like Jeremiah that we're going to talk to shortly. How difficult is it now to build a roster? How do you go about finding the players that are available and that fits the chemistry and the needs that you have for your team?
Yeah, I think when you talk about it, I think, like you said, we're going to talk to Jeremiah in a minute, but, I think one, you still have to figure out, how to keep the guys on your current roster that you really want to build with. And I think that's where this group started with was being able to bring back, Jeremiah, Colin Ruffin, Jordan Wildy, Nate Johnson. I mean, those guys, they got a lot of experience for us last year. And so that, like I said, that kind of set the foundation of guys to be able to return for a change that, played a lot last year and gave us a lot. And so from that point, then it became kind of a fill in the pieces of, what do we need to go around them? And, I think that what we tried to do was find that mix. We were, like I said, we took three high school kids that is kind of uncommon, but we were comfortable with all three of them and really like them. And they're going to play for us this year. We think we got three really good players there. Then I think trying to find the right transfers. And, we've kind of talked about this on other interviews and other podcasts this off season, but, being able to find those guys from a variety of places, not just Division I. And, I think we were fortunate enough to, I think, get two pretty good Division I transfers in Markeith Browning and Reggie Bass, a guy that played in the Horizon League, a guy that played in the MAC. I think those guys, will translate well to another competitive league. But then you look at other guys, you can find guys from all different levels. And, I think we kind of did that with Aeneas Futrell, who was a Division II transfer, who had a really good year at Christian Brothers last year. And, I've been surprised at, his talent and how well he's jumped in and fit. So, I think just, kind of figuring out, what fits your style of play, what fits your program, and what can be successful in the league is kind of the first things we look at there.
Over the years that you can practice a little earlier now and you get some hours with the teams. Does that obviously help now when you have a roster that's so new every year? They can come together before October 15th, like it used to be back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's a good point, and I've made the same comment. I think it's really made a difference over the last few years, and I think it really makes a tremendous difference now. As you know, it's more common to add 7, 8 guys a year, and it's not necessarily, to me anyway. It's not necessarily the fact that you're going to get in there in June and July and just start practicing and putting in your system. I think it's more to the point that guys get to come in June and July and they get to know each other. They get to kind of build some chemistry and really just be around each other for the first time. Because you go back to your point, we talk about building a roster. I think the thing that we're missing, and not, I think a lot of teams, not just us, is you're missing the 7, 8 guys that are playing together for 2, 3, 4 years at a time. And so I think that June and July is where you catch up on that. And I think we probably put as much emphasis on just kind of growing our team and growing our mentality as a group in the summer as we do anything. But I think it's more important than ever.
Where do you think your team has made the biggest progress since the summer to where we are now in October 16th?
That's a good question. we scrimmage UMKC on Saturday. Maybe we'll find that out then. I think but I would say honestly, I think in that kind of in that chemistry department a little bit, being able to learn each other's tendencies, being able to be around each other. And I've told these guys, I do think they're a good group in that area, and sometimes those are challenging times for big turnover rosters. But these guys have had they've kind of had a vibe to them that's a little bit uncommon maybe. So I think that's been good. But I think our biggest growth has probably just been our comfort level with everything, our comfort level with each other, our comfort level with the style of play, our comfort level with our daily schedules. Because that's something that I think we tend to take for granted. But those things take time. It takes time for 3 freshmen to figure out what every day in college is like. And at the same time, it takes time for transfers, whether they're juniors, seniors coming from Division I, coming from Division II. It's still all new to them. And so I think that comfortability that we've been able to get over the last couple months has really grown, and probably one of the biggest things we've been able to do.
Tell us about your schedule a little bit. I know it's pretty easy to open with Oklahoma. I know that's
Yeah.
right there, but how did the schedule come together, and how do you feel like the non-conference will really help prepare for league play?
I think our schedule's good. Obviously we've got our guarantees with Oklahoma, Missouri, Ole Miss, Valpo, and we know that year in, year out we're going to have those challenges, and you try to I don't, there's really no rhyme or reason behind kind of who we pick or why we decide to play who we decide to play. But you just know that they're going to be challenges. But I think that, and we've talked about this in the past, I think out of those 4 games, you're trying to hold yourself accountable on those nights when it's going to be really tough, and see what your character of your team is made of. Can you hang in there? How long can you play well? If things get tough, how can you bounce back? Because it's going to be a tremendous challenge. So I don't look, I look at those as test of system and character as much as anything, and see what you can find in the middle of that. But the rest of it, I think, has been really good, and I think we've been able to piece together pretty good schedules every year. We've got IUPUI at home in a return game that we won the first one on the road up there last year, and they've got a new coach and pretty much a new roster. And then we've got the tournament at Robert Morris that we'll play in right before Thanksgiving with Robert Morris, Stonehill, and New Orleans. So who we feel like are playing Robert Morris at home, out of a league that's a little bit probably higher than ours, will be a challenge. But you feel like the other 2 games are comparable and competitive opponents, and I think that's all we try to look for. Once we get away from the guarantee games, is can we find comparable opponents? And I think that when you find those comparable opponents, that's what kind of gives you kind of the experience that you need to get ready for OVC play. Because I don't know if if you beat Missouri, for example. I'm not sure that means you're going to win the league by any means, so you can take from those games what you want, but I think that when you play the like opponents, I think that gives you a lot better idea of really, where you're at as a team and what things truly look like.
What, being the relative new kid on the block in Division 1, is it easier to find games or harder? Does everybody want to play you, or is it like they all know who you are and they want to they just haven't taken time to add you to the schedule?
You know what? I've probably felt both ways at times because um, I think it's been, if I had to say one or the other, surprisingly, I think it's been a little bit harder to find, the non-conference comparable opponent games, the home and homes. Um, I would have thought people would have been knocking the door down to come here and start a series on the road against a, average to bad team maybe at times. And, it kind of really hasn't been that way. The guarantee games are always there to get for all of us, but I don't know. At times I felt like, both ways, that I was a little surprised that more teams didn't reach out and want to start a series, and it kind of been surprised how kind of hard it is to get those going. But at other times we've had plenty of phone calls, and maybe some of it's just us not being the right fit or not wanting to play those specific teams. So somewhere in the middle of that, I think we've seen probably everything.
What is one thing that your team would need to do to be in contention to win an OVC championship this year?
I think be really, really good defensively. I think that's one area that we've spent a lot of time on. Started this summer and right away here in the preseason, is getting a tougher mentality. Having a tougher mindset on the defensive end. I thought that I thought in year one we did some things okay defensively that let us hang around in games, and I didn't think last year we ever got very consistent defensively, and it's just something I think is important. I think when you look up and you kind of see the teams that are at the top of the league, I think they're good on both sides of the ball, but I think the thing that stands out to me is they're always really good defensively. And that's been a big challenge for us so far. We've talked a lot about it. We've made a big commitment to it in practice. And so, I think that's the first thing that jumps to mind.
I'm going to ask you about Jeremiah in a minute, but is there somebody maybe on your roster that maybe the other people in the OVC don't know yet who you think is going to be a impact for your team this year?
Yep. Should I answer that, or should I keep it a secret?
I'll keep that a secret then, or and I get it could be somebody who maybe it's not going to be your leading scorer, but maybe somebody who a newcomer to watch out for.
Yeah, I think I think a couple guys. I think that I think a returner like Nate Johnson, he has a chance to have a good year. He was up and down last year, and just I think as a newcomer trying to get his feet wet and kind of learn on the fly a lot during the year. And you can go back and look; he was up and down from a minute standpoint. But the thing that he did was he finished the season really well. I think he averaged, maybe it's not exactly right, but I think he averaged 12 points a game in the last 6 games, something like that. And I felt like it took him that long, maybe even to get comfortable. And he's been good this summer. He's been good in this off season, preseason. So I think a guy like him, I'm excited to get Jordan Wildy back on the court. Jordan was a big piece for us when we signed him a year ago. And he blew his ACL out last June in our first summer practice, never got to play. So, I thought that, we were planning on him being a big inside presence for us last year. And so to go, obviously all year without him, now having him back healthy, the work he's put in, to rehab and things like that, I think has been really good. So, we're excited about both of those guys. For sure. And then, I think I think a guy that, I think we talked about Jeremiah and Markeith was kind of a player to watch, but, I think another guy that'll be interesting to see, truly how he does is Reggie Bass, because I think he's a really talented guy. I mean, he was MAC freshman of the year 2 years ago at Central Michigan. Played a big role on the team at Kent State last year that got beat in the conference championship game. So they were seconds away from going to the national tournament. So we're going to lean on him because of his experience and because of his talent. And so I think he would be the other guy that, in my mind, could possibly be the reason that this team finds more success than we've had in the past. So I think those 3 guys will be exciting to watch and kind of see how they grow this year.
Well, we'll close with this. And tell us about Jeremiah, maybe something that we don't know about, and what he meant to your team last year. Playing, he appeared in all 31 games, made
Yeah.
25 starts for you.
Yeah, well, I think one is, I think you've got to start with his character. Kind of what he does on a daily basis is kind of where everything starts because you need guys that show up every day and they work and they play through the ups, they play through the downs, not only as a team but individually because I think Jeremiah would tell you he didn't get off to the greatest start last year. But just from a shot making standpoint, I mean that's kind of what he does. The life of a shooter sometimes is challenging, and I think for him coming in last year from junior college and getting thrown into the fire right away, I think the learning experience was incredible, and he understood, how to handle it. I think through his frustrations, he never stopped working. When he found success, he never stopped working. And, I think that what we saw from him the last half of the year um, is is what makes everybody excited, and then you look at, the way he's changed his body in the off season, the work that he's put in. He's done everything that he's supposed to do to make himself a better player. And when you get guys that put in the time and they have the commitment, not only to themselves but your program, I think those are the pieces that take you to the next level. Is the consistency, not just grabbing a guy and hoping that they play well, right? It's the process of improvement, the process of getting better, and the process. In all reality, if you're here for 3 years, how big of impact does a guy like Jeremiah have on our overall program? And being able to put his name on this program as one of the guys that really, led us through this change. And I think that to me, that's what I look at more than anything is, he's his personality and his character. I think he's going to leave a big impact on this program at the end of the day, and I think that's what we'll all enjoy the most about him.
Well, Coach, appreciate your time and best of luck to you this season. And we will wish you all the best.
Thank you. Appreciate it.